Welcome to this very special edition of The Author's Voice with KAJ, a show where we explore the stories behind the stories. Here we dive into the worlds created by authors, discover their inspirations, and ensure that you walk away enriched and inspired. And today we have with us author Robin Waite, founder of Fearless Business, expert on pricing, a regular keynote speaker at business events, and best-selling author of several books, including Online Business Startup, Marketing Machine, and the recent popular release, Take Your Shot. We'll be talking about that. We'll dive into the story behind the story. Welcome to the show, Robin.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to speak to you again, AJ.
You're welcome. Welcome to the show once again, Robin. And this is not just the second time. There will be several more times coming into the future. But today we'll be talking about your book, Take Your Shot. We'll talk about that and learn that. But before that, let's understand a bit about your author journey. 3 books, if I understand right, till now, and many more to come. Tell us a bit about you. What led to you becoming an author?
Yeah, so I've been in business 20 years, and it's been a journey of lots of ups and downs. But my first business was running a marketing agency. And I got to about a decade into running that agency, so 2 years before I sold it, and realized that a lot of the people who were really making waves in our industry in the marketing and branding world, typically they were published authors. They were speaking on stages, they were guesting on podcasts and things like that. Originally, I hadn't planned to sort of write a book, but I did a program. It was called Key Person of Influence, run by a guy called Daniel Priestley. His business is called Dent. I mean, he's got the same book as well with the same name. I'll share it with you, Key Person of Influence. But I read the book, absolutely loved it. And there's 5 principles in it, of which one of those was published. So I got really inspired when I met Dan, and I went along to one of his branding accelerators. One must have been sort of 12 years ago now. But I eventually signed up to the KPI, Key Personal Influence course. And then one of the modules obviously was to publish a book. So we did they did a 30-day challenge. So 30,000 words in 30 days. And I'm a little bit foolhardy, AJ, as you know. And so I kind of took on the challenge. And I think out of my cohort of maybe 50 or 60 people that were in the group, only 5 of us completed the 30,000 word challenge in the 30 days. And that book ended up becoming the first book which I wrote, which was called Online Business Startup. The idea behind Online Business Startup, actually, it was originally going to be, because I ran a web design studio, so it was originally going to be titled Why Websites Fail. And I remember my book mentor, she said that you need a more positive title. You've got to have something about the outcome of like what are the benefits of sort of taking a business online, starting up and then launching it. So we ended up on the title of Online Business Startup. And a short backstory to this as well. In the book, because it was originally going to be all about websites and finding a good web designer and the technical side of it. And I asked the question, I said, there's a ton of stuff that I wish I'd known 10 years ago when I first started my business, my agency. Could I put that in a chapter in the book? And Dan was sat at the back of the room, and I can't do an Australian accent, but he was just like, just bloody write it, Rob, just write it, put it in the book. If it needs to be a bigger book, you can write a business book later. Anyway, so that one chapter ended up being 10 chapters, a third of the book. And so that's the business part of Online Business Startup. And really, that was the launch pad for becoming a key person of influence for me. As soon as the book launched, it became an Amazon bestseller. I think it sold something like 20,000 copies through Amazon and on a global sort of scale. It wasn't just like an overnight bestseller either. It was, I think I spent 2.5 years in as an Amazon bestseller in small business and entrepreneurship category, flip-flopping around between some of the biggest authors out there. But it was the launch pad really for things like getting onto podcasts, speaking on the stage, and created some really fantastic opportunities that I think had I not written the book, I never would have had that chance.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that led to your latest book, Take Your Shot.
Yeah,
Who is this book for? Yeah.
well, there's a bit of a backstory behind this. So I sold my agency in 2016, and shifted away from doing websites. So online business startup actually became a little less relevant, really, for the types of clients I was working with as a coach and what I was working with clients on as a coach. But in sort of late 2016, I was on the hunt for new clients, and at the time I was working with a lot of sort of freelancers and creative agency owners and things like that. I put on a webinar for web design agencies. About 50 people on it, 40 or 50 people showed up to the webinar. And then about 5 minutes after I'd closed the webinar down and was just sort of, unwinding after it, I got a phone call on my mobile. And there's this very excitable person on it, a guy called Russ, who was a golf pro. I didn't know that at the time. And he said, "Oh, I loved your webinar. It's so valuable. I can really see how it's going to help my business." And I was like, "Well, okay, tell me about your agency then." He was like, "No, I don't run an agency. I'm a golf pro." So anyway, Russ, the golf pro, ended up becoming my first official coaching client. And I used to go to sort of deliver talks and things like that and tell this story about Russ's journey where we productized his service and we helped him raise his prices and got him more confident at sales. And just several people said, "Rob, you should really write that into a book. It would make a fantastic story anecdote, sort of to share with people." And I'd read a couple of other sort of story-based books as well. So it's actually told as like a parable, as a story. Only a short book. It's about 100 pages. And the other similar books like Built to Sell, there's another book called Go for No, The Goal by Jeff Cox, The Phoenix Project. There's all these books that are told in this story sort of framework, and I was hooked on them. Absolutely loved listening to them on audio books, and I thought I'd love to write a book like that. So I took Russ's story and just that became, Take Your Shot on the journey which Russ goes through. There is on a business side, like commercial side, there was an angle as well with the book. So with Online Business Startup, I went through a hybrid publisher. So I had to pay to go through the publishing process, which actually I'd recommend any first-time author. You can DIY publish a book, you can self-publish, but the quality of, you can always tell the quality of a self-published book when the typeface isn't quite right, how the spacing of the words and the cover's not quite perfect. But so I went with Online Business Startup. I used a hybrid publisher. Paid some money for it, but one of the things was, because it's about 250 pages, and I had to pay a royalty to my publisher every time even I ordered copies of it, because I give books away basically as part of my marketing strategy. So copies of Online Business Startup are actually costing me quite a lot of money, and I worked out that a 100-page book it fell into like the next level down category of postage. So it's cheaper to post, it was cheaper to print, and I could get a better quality finish on it as well through using a local printer. So that massively reduced my cost through when I was giving it away sort of marketing wise. And so for comparison, Online Business Startup used to cost about £6, so $8 roughly to print. And it was about £3 to £4 locally to post, plus it was even more obviously sending it abroad. Whereas this book now is costs about £1.80 a copy, so about a third of the price to print, and it's about half the price to post as well, because it's a smaller book and falls into that lower postage category. So commercially, it's worked out far better for me, and I've been able to, I've had it professionally. I still recommend, even when you self-publish, so I self-publish this basically, but I still recommend getting a professional designer to do the cover, get a professional to do the layout inside the book and things like that as well. And also as the book's gone out and it's been received by people, I can take some of that feedback and update it fairly frequently as well to make sure it's still relevant and got the right links in there and various other things like that as well. So yeah, there's quite a big backstory actually to Take Your Shot, how it came about and why I wrote it as well.
Absolutely. So who is this book for? You talk about, how to grow your business, attract more clients and make more money. Is there a specific audience to this book?
Yeah, primarily it's for business owners who are sort of small one-person businesses, they're typically charging time for money, but the common sort of thread story between all of the clients I work with is that they are remarkable, like incredibly smart people. They get brilliant results for their clients. They love doing the work which they do, but then they get to the end of every month, you know, tired, exhausted through all the work they've done and scratching their heads wondering where all the money is. So we're thinking, you know, sort of coaches, consultants, freelancers, creatives, people who are very traditional time for money, you know, hourly rate or day rate type business owners. And I won't give the game away, but there's 5 business principles which I talk about in Take Your Shot, where essentially you go through this process of packaging up your offer. So it's no longer, you know, your value is no longer attached to the time or materials that you put into something. The value which you can, you know, how much you charge is based on the value you deliver for your clients. So based on outcomes and results. So it goes through sort of those 5 stages of packaging up the offer, repricing it, getting confidence around sort of charging more for it. We also talk about sort of what marketing assets you need to build in order to, you know, attract the right types of clients in to buy those products or services as well. But yeah, primarily service client business owners, and equally startups. There's some very experienced people who've read this book as well, who've been in business a long time, and they've still been able to sort of glean some really helpful, sort of valuable insights from it as well.
Absolutely. And what about the fearless business part? How do you become a fearless business? Have you dealt that into the book? And any other thing that you have dealt? What is it, if somebody has to know, okay, what is in this book, so that, you know, I'll be interested? What is it there?
Yeah, so the fearless brand sort of came about because it's not about sort of being reckless. It's actually or you know, doing crazy outlandish things or taking risks. It's actually about fearing the things in business and life ever so slightly less that stop you from achieving your goals. So for Russ, for example, you know, what he did is he charged the same as what everybody else in his industry, all the other golf pros were charging, you know, as a coach in their local area. Whereas if he wanted to achieve his financial goals and he wanted to give a bit of financial security for his family, and also there were things which he wanted to achieve outside of that, which was actually running retreats, and, you know, which are far more expensive, and both in terms of like the cost, but also for people to then buy, you know, spaces on those retreats. So he just had to push some of that natural fear to one side around charging more than his competition, around sort of building in, you know, super high ticket revenue streams into his business. There was a bit, by about page 74, I think it is, there's a bit of artistic license where we shift from Russ's sort of actual story into more around his sort of dreams and aspirations. He wanted to get on the stage and speak. He wanted to, you know, run these retreats and charge lots of money for them. But the idea behind being fearless in business is, like I said, just to, you know, if you're afraid of standing up and doing a 60-second pitch, or getting onto a podcast, or writing that book, or putting your prices up, these are all things which are the difference between you having an okay business and a massively successful business. It's like those, I call them the sliding doors moments. We have 8 sliding doors moments in our lives during our careers. And if you miss one of those, if you don't put your prices up at the right time, if you don't sell to the right audience at the right time, the door's shut and you don't get that opportunity necessarily again. So yeah, that's the whole concept behind sort of being fearless. And Russ definitely is fearless as well, you know, as we go through his story in the book.
Absolutely. Any particular thing that you want draw readers' attention to in this book?
In terms of sort of leaders, I think really it's about, you know, everybody has these big sort of aspirational goals and dreams, and they will hold themselves back. And, you know, you have to have certain sort of freedoms in place in order to be able to achieve what you want to get out of life and business. And, I mean, this is something which isn't necessarily, this is a bit of my personal story now, actually, but for example, I was diagnosed with a neurological condition in August last year. And the news was very sort of scary, but it also brings your life very sharply into focus. And I think we, as human beings, we kind of think that we are, you know, we're going to live forever. Somehow we're immortal. And then all of a sudden, you know, you hit your 60s, 70s, whatever, and you're told that now's the time to retire and you get to go traveling and enjoy your life and stuff like that. And it's like, actually, really, I think a lot of people kind of spend far too long focusing on their career and their business, and not enough time actually getting time out for themselves to be able to enjoy. And that's a theme which kind of, again, it comes up in the, I won't give a spoiler alert, but that's a theme which comes up in the book, which I don't think is just for leaders. I think it's for everybody can take something from that. And even myself, having now lived, getting that piece of news back in August last year, I've been able to make a few changes to my sort of lifestyle and what I want to achieve in my business that probably I wouldn't have done had I not had that news.
Absolutely, absolutely, Robin. What are the key insights, key message that you would want readers to take away from this book of yours, Robin?
The main one is charge your worth. Like, so many people undervalue, undersell themselves, and they copy their competitors and then wonder why things aren't working out for themselves. And I think, at the end of the day, in every single industry, there is one person or one business that is the most expensive in that niche. And my question to you, if you're watching this or listening to this, is, somebody has to be the most expensive. So why can't it be you? And the most successful businesses or business owners that create financial freedom for themselves, generally it's because they've carved out a niche where they can challenge the status quo, and they can charge over the odds of everybody else. And like, one statistic that kind of backs this up, if you look at pretty much any industry out there, 10% of the people at the top of the industry are extracting 60% of the value out of that industry. It means that 90% of business owners are scrapping over the final 40% of money that's left in that niche. So even positioning yourself in the top 10% is going to, put you head and shoulders ahead of everybody else. And I know there's more to life than making money. I get that. But equally, you can't live that life if you don't have the means to live it. And so getting to a point whereby you are charging your worth, and being one of the top 10% in your industry pricing wise, starts to give you that freedom that you want to live.
Absolutely. One thing a lot of people we grow up with is that don't price yourself out of the market. And you talk about getting the worth. How do you calibrate both the things?
Well, you can price yourself out of the market by being the cheapest in the industry if you want to. It just means that you're not going to make any profit, and eventually you're going to go out of business, right? So surely it's better to create some opportunity and profit and bandwidth for yourself by being the most expensive in the market. I think it goes beyond the realms of possibility. After a while, it's kind of like, if the average mobile phone costs $1,000, well, if you launch a $10,000 phone, well, why would somebody want to buy that? But there are, believe it or not, there are $10,000 phones out there which people do buy, because they've got diamond encrusted cases that are, designed specifically for that individual. But so like, how far do you push it? If you look at the coaching industry, for example, the average coach charges $100 a session or $200 a session. Mid-range coaches will package it up and charge 6 to 10K for a 6-month program. But then you've got the likes of Tony Robbins. So if you want to work with him, it costs you like, $1.5 million a year to work with Tony Robbins. And you probably don't even get to work with him. You probably work with his team mostly, I would imagine. So, part of, I don't think you can price yourself out of the market by being the most expensive, but there is also that getting the balance right between supply and demand. The reason why Tony Robbins can charge over $1 million for coaching is because he has just got such a big brand, and so many, there is so much demand, and he's got a limited amount of capacity or space to be able to service those clients. So you've got to get the balance right. I think you can charge high, but you've also got to have a decent amount of, demand for your services in order to charge a lot.
Absolutely. What next? Which book is coming next? You've already written one more book, if I understand. And let me show. Yeah, this. Where is this book? Let me show it for you. Yes, Online Business Startup. And then there was one more book. But which one? What one is coming up in terms of book, in terms of other projects?
Yeah, so I've just finished the draft. In fact, it's gone to the designers of. It's not really a full book. I was inspired. There was a great book by Perry Marshall called Detox, Declutter, and Dominate. There was kind of just a simple sort of workbook just to get people started. And I always wanted to I'll share it with you. So it's this book here, but he's got some really lovely sort of graphics which he's integrated into the book, you know, and exercises which you can kind of go through and do. So I was really inspired by this. So I've actually just created the Fearless Business Blueprint, which is going to be my version of this, and that will be out hopefully probably in the next sort of 2 to 3 weeks with any luck, if everything goes well, sort of design wise and publishing wise. And then finally, I'm about 30,000 words into sort of my next proper book, as it was, which is going to be just solely on pricing. So pricing, money mindset, and theory around sort of different pricing strategies and things like that. That one I've actually got a publishing deal with, so that's quite exciting. It does mean there's a longer process to go through, so it's going to be probably 2026 before that's out. But that I'm hoping is going to be sort of my signature book, which outlives me, because it's going to be, you know, far more theoretical based. And I'm hoping that, you know, institutions like universities and educational sort of establishments will pick up that book potentially for their reading lists. So it's more about, that one's far more about sort of legacy and long term, sort of when I'm gone, you know, people hopefully quoting the Fearless Pricing book.
Absolutely. That will, when that book comes out, we will talk, and that book will not only outlive you, or you know, but there will be many other books who will be there coming for, and you will also have be there for a long time. There is so many shows to do together, so many episodes, and so many books to talk about, and lots of fearless business wisdom to talk about with you, Robin. Thank you so much indeed. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the Author's Voice with KAJ. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.